So you wanna start a war in the age of icons? So you wanna be immortal?
Welcome to Werewolf the podcast. This is the final part of the vampire trilogy, which ended up with 8 parts. I don't understand either. Please go down to the description where you can join the Facebook group, get my Twitter handle, buy a book of the first 30 podcasts. You could even give me some money through Support the Link Show if you wanted to. People have, and it's been very nice. Let's carry on with the story. You might have heard about my giant crucifix in my art room, have you? If you listen to my past stories, you should remember my work where I ripped a live baby from a living woman's womb. No? Oh, you've missed out. Well, that crucifix was taken from a Polish Catholic church where it came with a Christ who was built like a bodybuilder, but the creator, the sculptor, not God, had weirdly given him 2 left feet. Did Jesus have 2 left feet? Maybe that is why the Bible never mentions his dancing. This guy seemed a very different gold leaf covered Messiah though. Now, it had her on it. It had Sammy the Sucker in a Jesus Christ pose. The vampire queen that I had captured a few months ago back in Manchester. She was trying to kill me for killing her brother and her lover. The brother and the lover were the same person or vampire, as you know. Who knows? But she'd gotten upset about this death and wanted me to suffer for it. I tried to get away and not do anything about it, but I had to end up killing a few vampires and capturing her. You can listen to those stories. I've already told you if you go back and look for any of the Vampire vs Werewolf trope stories. That would be good if you did that to understand why this story in particular was happening. I now had her. She was all mine, and it was so much fun because she had an ego bigger than mine. This thing, in the past, had been recognised as a goddess just a few thousand years ago, and now she was my plaything in my art room. To be honest, she was an angry wee thing, but it was so much fun playing with her. Oh wait, I know what you're thinking. I do. There wasn't anything sexual going on. Nothing rapey or anything. Not my style. I like my sex consensual. If they don't want it, what's the fucking point? You have to be a sick puppy to do the raping. Oh, I did try it once, but I have to say it isn't for me, and I gave up on it and apologised for my actions long before it had gotten past the mild fondling stage. Just not for me, I'm afraid. No, I just tended to humiliate Sammy, to be honest. She was immortal, and torturing her had been fun at first, but her ability to accept pain and refresh her damaged body made it a little dull after the first few tries. All she did was try to humiliate me about my torturing efforts. I must admit it worked significantly, really to the point where it made me not want to try and torture her anymore. When you remove someone's arm and slap them with it and their response is to take the piss and ask if that's all you have, it makes no sense to continue. Stealing her freedom and eating my bloody breakfasts in front of the thirsty bitch was much more entertaining. I had her now pinned to the cross and tied and chained. Sorry, a lot of "and" there, but it was certain that I would not allow this thing to get away in my house. Who knew what she would get up to if she got free in my home? She would probably try and kill me again and stuff. Never mind, she might mess up the carpets and things. So she was firmly bolted to that cross through and around her actual fecking bones. The pain of this did not seem to bother her in the slightest though. She just seemed to want to be free, and that was her greatest issue. She also kept telling me that the others, whoever they were, would find her and free her, that, well, it'd be a fun time if they tried. I now knew how to kill or re-kill the undead or dead or whatever. I had experimented with a couple of other captured vampires, seeing what it takes to kill these fangy fuckers, and it's pretty simple. You had to remove their head and move it some distance away from the body. Honestly, if you didn't move the head at least 2 feet from the body would like fucking reach out and reattach it. It's crazy, crazy. Now I had tried steaks and burning, but that did fuck all. Sunlight was the best thing to destroy them. UV light was almost as good. They all burned up in front of you. It was brilliant. Silver did nothing. And sadly, most of the holy shite was a myth. Holy water just made her clothes get overly tempting and wet. I often thought the bastards were dead, and then they were not. They would come back and frighten the fuck out of me last minute. I had a few close calls in my experiments. She was something slightly different than the rest, though. I mean, she was Semiramis or Samarama, a queen from 830 BC and probably a few thousand years before that. In the eyes of the people, she had been a god and a monster even then. She was the shit. She murdered hundreds of thousands, probably millions, and led her own armies from the front. She was always the first into the fray. Sorry, I'm getting wet at the thought of her. So slightly different from the other newborn vampires. Ultraviolet light and sunlight only caused her mild irritation. She just seemed to be annoyed by it. Weird her. I wonder why the younger versions of her couldn't take it at all. There has to be something scientifical behind it all, but I couldn't be asked to do the next level of research. I just wanted an anti-vamp kit around my place so that if she broke free or her mates found her, I would have the stuff to destroy them quickly or as easily as I could. She was now spitting venom at me from the cross. No, not actual venom like a venomy spitting thing, but sheer malice. She never lost that element of anger and her ability to monologue her vitriol. I found it fascinating that she could talk for as long as I sat in front of her, and her anger never seemed to reduce. I mean, those things sort of run out of energy after a while. Humans tend to have about 45 seconds of anger before the angry little creature seated in the amygdala runs out of energy and just gives up. She was amazing, and though she did repeat herself an awful lot, it was terrific the way she kept the hate and the hurt coming. I mean, she was brilliant. I tried to gag her once or twice to stop this shit from continuing, but she'd chewed up the ball gag and the material gag was not enough to stop her from talking. She just kept going. I just used to sit and listen and watch her as I waited for that fateful day when she would hopefully shut the fuck up so I could get a word in edgeways. I was super impressed with how she had all this energy, so I wanted to talk with her. I wanted to ask her loads of questions. I'd already learnt all this goddess shit from her spewing her hoop with words, but it would have been nice if I could have asked her a few things. It came one Saturday morning while I was watching Scooby-Doo on my phone as I listened to her rant. The coffee was good, and I'd been out for dinner last night having a 4-course all-you-could-eat at a local family home, so I felt refreshed and content in this moment. Fen and I always have a little ritual where we watch the kids' Saturday morning cartoons when we can. We particularly love Scooby. They are the best because the reality of life is seen there. Well, I suppose it's not the reality of life, but it is the one that those who would not want to believe in monsters and magic believe in. Humans on this show are the worst and always the seat of the things that happen. It is always the high school coach, the janitor, or the local circus performer outed by those pesky kids. It is never the monster that they're led to believe it is. There are monsters out there, and listening to a talking dog will lead you to your own thoughts on mental health, maybe. I like that reality, and I really wish it was true. Fen loved Scooby in particular. I think that he thought of me as his psychotic Shaggy or something. Do not get him started about Scrappy though. We both hate that little shit. Anyway, sorry about the digression there. We were just finishing the programme where the pesky kids had followed the plans of the guy who ran the water slide when the background noise of her utter bile just stopped. She was out of breath and dangling from the cross. She still wore the habit of Mother Teresa that I'd bought from some bloke on eBay. Well, it was an experiment in itself to see if the habit would affect the vampire lady, but it had done nothing for her but made her look like a kinky nun from a porno where the chicken and the feather get mixed up. I think it affected me much more than it did her, to be honest, and it was not a bad habit. I mean, habits can be very fetching, but Mother Teresa's was not sexually exciting on Mother Teresa, but on Sammy it was just fucking... She now dangled from the many things that held her on the cross and moaned. I had my cup halfway to my mouth as Fen told me he thought that the dude from the water slide was a pedo. He had no decent argument for this point. I mean, the whole Scooby gang were sort of within legal age, were they not? I'm not sure. We both turned and looked at the now limp body on the cross, and I sipped my bitter brew as I considered her. Her eyes were closed and she was breathing heavy. I thought this might be a trick because of me being me and her being her. You know, draw me in and do something nasty. So I asked Fen to go and check her out to ensure that she hadn't worked herself loose or anything. She'd been a cunt to subdue in the first place, and it was pretty early on a Saturday morning, and I would prefer not to have to go to war before I'd finished my first cup of joe for the day. He wandered over and had a good look around her crucifixy place. It had been a while since I checked her out, to be honest. I was just mesmerised by her energy to keep speaking, so I had to be sure she would not leap off the cross and brutalise me. Another fantastic fact you may not know is that vamps do not shit or wee. Crazy, huh? Well, she hadn't done so in weeks, so I assume they don't. She also had not got smelly, and her hair had not grown. She just fucking looked perfect. Lucky bitch. Although, when does she check out her social media accounts if she never has to go to the loo? She must have to find some spare time in the day to check friend face. Anyway, sorry for always going off track and being sidelined by things popping into my mind as I speak. She was still very well held according to the posit. Then she moved. Only her head, but it made me and my invisible and untouchable wolf soul flinch. She then started talking again, but this time it was no rant that she was giving me. I can see your little dog friends sniffing around me, Will. Shit. She knew my name as well. That was new and a little bit concerning. Could she read my mind? Fen was also a little shocked and uncomfy, knowing he could be seen, so he sent a message to me through the telepathy which we shared. If that is true, Fen, get her to tell you what I'm doing now, sent Fen. The foolish animal is touching his nose with his right paw, she quickly said. I stopped drinking my coffee and placed the cup on the table to try and work out what was happening. So, you can see Fen and hear what he's saying to me then, I asked her. It took me time to notice him, but over the weeks I have noticed more and more, and then today he revealed himself to me. I can now see the big black dog. I'm a fucking wolf, putted in Fen. Dog, she reiterated, showing an overly sexy, fang-filled smile of mirth at Fen's response. I could see that the posit now felt a bit stupid from butting in, but this was new ground. We were walking here. No one had ever seen Fen apart from me and the other werewolves. I can swallow what you call maybe magic, and it all becomes apparent to me eventually. I can smell and feel your level of concern that I am a dangerous creature for you to contain. That is good, little man. It is good that you have that respect, or else you would already have been dead, to be honest. You have no idea what you are holding here. I am a god! I played with the cup on the countertop, giving it all my attention and waiting for her to stop. I genuinely thought she was going to go back into her inane lecturing, but she did not, so I was actually going to get to communicate with her. Fen thinks you're still pretty secure on that cross, I said. I think that it can contain you, so I'm not so worried about what you are, I told her. I do respect you and your power, and yet, of course, I'm a bit nervous because you're a fucking god and you want to kill me. I'm not a dafty, you know. I don't want to die quite yet. My bucket list needs completing first. I have been waiting and making time to read you and your little pet here so that I can make my escape. I'm going to allow you to let me go. Oh, and no, I will not walk away and let you be. I am going to kill you, even if you help me. If you help me, it will be quick and painless. That is what I believe they call a blessing from a god. I could feel her try and force her glamour on me. It was so powerful it was difficult to stop my body from walking toward her and doing what she wanted. Luckily, I had a Fen to shout at me and bring me back to reality. I smiled at her and clapped a few times. That was really good. You almost fucking got me there. And she joined in with my laughter. I will keep trying, Will. I will get you one day, she said through her laughter. She was mesmerizing, but I realized that she was partly causing this infatuation in my mind. Once again, she stared at me, boring those purple eyes into mine, and she put significant coercive power into her words. Release me now. Fuck! I said, leaping to my feet. That was so good. Wow, you are the shit, Sammy. Now on my feet, I folded my arms and looked at her. See, what we have here is a classic Mexican standoff. I mean, neither of us is going to win this battle. You are completely at my mercy. To this, she actually laughed. Well, you are, even if you don't admit it. If I release you, or if you escape, then you will kill me? And she nodded. I really should kill you, should I not? Again, she nodded. But I can't. I smiled. You're too fucking awesome to die. Honestly, you are one of the best things that I've ever had. It's just a shame that we've gotten to this point. I truly wish that we could be friends. We would have had so much fun. She lifted her head and smiled. Oh, we can be friends, and much more if you wished. Her eyes burned a beautiful violet, and I fell into them. A moment later, I woke up fully transformed into my werewolf form. I was smashing my head with considerable force against the nearest white-tiled wall. Fen was now in my head, shouting and screaming at me to wake the fuck up and get a fucking grip. I smiled and stopped the head banging. Behind me, there was laughter. I got you there, my little friend. You cannot fight me forever, and your little doggy will not always be able to save you. Are you okay, Will? Fen asked. You lost it there. She almost had you. We transformed back to the human and the posit, and I sat and looked at him with sad eyes. This was a shame. She was one of the most incredible things that the world had ever created. She was so powerful and so beautiful, but there was no way I could allow her or anything to have that level of control over me. I turned to look at her. Our eyes met and the smile left her eyes. She saw in mine her death. She had gambled, and she had lost. There would be no more chances for her. There would be no more time for her to get stronger and gain control. I walked over to her, and as I did so, I invited Fenrir to enter me. By the time I reached her head, I was the giant werewolf, a black demon in the night. My amber eyes fixed upon the purple irises before me. I held her chin in my right paw and sniffed her. She smelled incredible. Sex and strength oozed from her. She knew what was going to happen now. A tear came into a beautiful crease around her left eye and ran from cheek to chin. It was blood, and it was the second to last action of this great vampire goddess. I figured she could now hear me talk in my head, so I did all I could. I sent her a truly felt apology for what I had to do now. I had no choice. She lifted her chin and re-met my eyes once more, and although not saying anything, her simple nod told me all. She knew it had to be. We both could never exist at the same time in this world. It was like Harry Potter and Voldemort. I lifted and tore that beautiful creature's head from its body. She made no noise. I then held her head and looked into those eyes as she passed. I took that head back to my seat at the counter and changed back into my human form. I maintained eye contact. It felt right to watch her go. When I knew she'd gone, I broke eye contact from the dead thing, picked up my cold coffee, and drank down the bitter dregs. The bitter dregs which matched the bitterness of her passing. Thanks for listening. That's the end of the Vampire Chronicles. Hope you enjoyed the tropey tropeness. Love you lots. Bye.